What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to Blazers Uprise Live here on a Monday night. We're into the month of May, and we're less than a week away from the NBA Draft Lottery, which will take place this upcoming Sunday. And Eric, I heard that the lottery's at 12 p.m. our time, but now I've heard that it's at 5 p.m. our time, so I don't know if it's official what time that will be yet, but of course we'll have a live stream for that. But man, before we look ahead, today was wild in the NBA. The Knicks squeak out a win against the Pacers, and then what the Timberwolves are doing right now is insane. Absolutely insane. We're going to touch upon Minnesota in their run through the NBA playoffs through a super team and the defending champs so far as they go up 2-0 in Denver tonight. We'll also talk a little bit about any big board changes we have with our Tankathon segment, as always. And also, if you look below the stream, there are merch options. There are merch options on YouTube. So, launched merch today. We'll have some giveaway stuff around that coming up in an upcoming stream. So, you don't want to miss any upcoming content. But, of course, we got to talk about the Blazers coaches. The Blazers let Scott Brooks and Rodney Billups mutually walk. But before we get into that, Eric, do you like the merch down there, and how's it going?
Yeah, I like the merch. I'm trying to figure out what time this stream actually is.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because I saw Keith Smith, my guy Keith Smith,
So
it was 12 p.m. Yeah, that's what he tweeted. But I've also seen
everything
5
else says
p.m.
5. Yeah, everything else says 5:30.
Yeah, so I guess he's just throwing
Except
us for a loop.
Elizabeth Allen says it's at noon, though. It's the earlier time. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it'll be at 5. They've never done it that early, but they've never done it on a Sunday, much less a Mother's Day. So once we know the time, we'll let you guys know. And whenever it is, we will be live, still putting that together. But yeah, man, got the hats for you, Eric. You've been asking for the hats. I got a couple of hat options down there. So a lot of the merch that you see there, still setting up the Shopify store, but if you click on one of the products, it'll take you to the Shopify store, and then you can go and buy it. And there's like a couple different colorway options. We're using the white logo, so like on a red t-shirt, the white logo looks really good, but like on a black or on a white t-shirt, the red and black logo looks really good. So mixing up a couple logos, a couple different colorway options for t-shirts. We got hoodies there, and we got snapbacks.
I got my old school one on.
Your old school one, yeah. So that's what the shirt should look like. You wore it. I saw it. I was like, did he already notice the products below the video? Because you're wearing the Blazers Uprise shirt today. It's very fitting.
I actually can't find the products below the video.
Oh, weird. They should be below the video. But if not, then we're working on it. I'm gonna pull up the stream and check myself. But anyway, Eric, how was your Monday?
Mine was pretty good. Hello, chat. Hope everyone is doing well. Yeah. How was your story?
It was good. It was good, man. Busy day today for me. Yeah, I don't see the merch options, but I saw them earlier today on mobile. So maybe it's only on mobile. I'm not sure. It shouldn't be that way, but that might be the case. And shout out to Arrow for dropping the link in the live chat if you want to go get yourself some merch, because yes, unfortunately the products are not showing up for some reason. Anyway, Eric, we got a lot to touch upon today. What's up, Will? Yes, we will have a lottery stream. We got a lot to touch upon today. Let's just jump into the first subject, which is a Blazer-related subject. We got some Blazer-related news, and it's news that I don't think anybody was complaining about, as the Blazers mutually agree to part ways with Scott Brooks, not Scoot Brooks, like I accidentally put in the title, okay? My apologies to Scoot Henderson for calling Scott Brooks Scoot Brooks, okay? But Scott Brooks and Rodney Billups are gone. are gone. The Blazers already lost Steve Hetzel. He joined Jordi Fernandez's staff there in Brooklyn, new head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. Hetzel will be an assistant there. And then Rodney Billups and Scott Brooks gone. Eric, is this good news? Is this news that doesn't really matter? Is this bad news? Are you going to miss Scott Brooks and Rodney Billups especially? I'm sure you're going to miss the Rodney Billups halftime interviews, huh?
Yeah, for sure. No, this is really good news. I thought they should have done this last offseason. You can't just keep running the same coaching staff back. If you're going to keep Billups, you had to mix it up. And one of the big changes needed to be Rodney. I mean, it's nepotism. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, I mean, he seemed pretty involved in some of the trail episodes, but, I don't know. We needed someone different that could maybe, get Chauncey to realize some of the things he's doing, whether Chauncey notices that or not. And then as far as Brooks goes, I mean, he's had some experience as a head coach in the NBA, and, you can argue about his success level, but there's no reason to keep going with the same coaching staff. If you're going to keep Billups, at least change up the assistants, see if they can find another mix that can work, because this coaching staff did not deserve to all keep their jobs.
Yeah, 100%. And you like that they're switching it up. Like, maybe you need a new voice in there. I hope that this is kind of a message to Chauncey. Like, we got to do a better job this year. But then again, if you listen to broadcasts and you listen to media members that are basically unofficial spokespersons for the team, right? Like, it's just excuse after excuse after excuse for Chauncey Billups. So it's kind of hard to say how the organization actually feels about Chauncey Billups at this point. He's certainly had his struggles, and this organization would be completely lost if they did not were not able to admit that to themselves, that Chauncey Billups hasn't come in and coached too well. But then again, circumstances have not been in his favor. So I'm kind of wondering if this is, okay, you know what, we will completely redo the assistant coaching staff, see if Chauncey can do a better job leading this team next year with different assistants under him. And if not, then maybe whoever they hire as the lead assistant could be head coach near the end of last year, because Chauncey Billups' contract will be coming to an end. He has an option on top of that may or may not get picked up, and obviously wouldn't get picked up if he's fired. So it's going to be interesting to see who the assistant coaches are, who the lead assistant is. You could be talking about a name like Darvin Ham if he doesn't land anywhere. He just recently got fired by the Los Angeles Lakers, but who knows? It could be a number of different people. It could be, maybe even our guy Terry Stotts. No, I'm just kidding.
I was going to make that joke.
I ruined your joke. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
He would never, though.
No, he would never, especially after last year. Maybe if last year didn't happen with the Bucks, he'd be open to being an assistant. I don't think he's going to, though.
Yeah, so we will see who the assistants are. I think it's going to matter, A, because Chauncey needs guys that can help him, more so than I think Scott Brooks and Rodney Billups were capable of. Never really liked Scott Brooks as a coach. But then on top of that, if there is a chance that Chauncey Billups could get fired at some point next year because his contract is coming to an end. And if these new assistants don't help Chauncey forge an identity for this team on either side of the floor, which I feel like they failed to do so this past season, then you could see a lame duck coach intern type of situation potentially where Chauncey Billups is on the outs and the Blazers roll with whoever their lead assistant is the rest of the year. So that's why it's going to be very important to pay attention to these names. Of course, in such a situation, you would want them to go through an actual coaching search and not treat it like they treated the Joe Cronin GM interview process. But who knows? I just like that they're shaking something up, Eric, because At this point, I want everything possible shaken up with this entire organization. So if it's just assistant coaches, that's probably not enough, but at least it's something.
Well, if we're knowing they're keeping Cronin, Jody's not selling the team, and Chauncey's staying at least another year, yeah, you got to shake it up this way, because we know they're going to have to shake up the roster a slight bit just to get under the tax, which we can talk about what was said on another show last night, maybe later in this show. But but yeah, I mean, I think you see this in the NFL a lot with a coach that is on the hot seat or that has been kind of questioned. They switch out his assistants and they see if maybe they can catch some lightning in a bottle with some other voices in the locker room. So I think this is a really good thing, and I mean, even if it doesn't work out, I mean, it wasn't working out with the other coaches anyway, so you might as well do it. And I really hope we're talking about a coach that is a good enough coach to where we're not talking about having to keep a player like Malcolm Brogdon at $22.5 million just for his veteran mentorship, right?
Yeah.
like get a coach that can mentor these guys like Chauncey's supposed to. So, yeah.
Especially if he's going to, Malcolm Brogdon's riding the bench. He basically was a coach, I guess, the second half of last year. So, I do agree with Taylor Packer in chat. He says, I want someone who is an X's and O's coach as the lead assistant. No more player coaches, LOL. I think that's Chauncey Billups' biggest weakness is X's and O's and getting his team to execute those X's and O's on either side of the floor. Mm-hmm. The problem is his lead assistant is Scott Brooks, and I've never been impressed with Scott Brooks as an X's and O's coach, right? The most success he had was with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, right? But that was in an NBA that has changed a ton since then. And I want somebody more modern, especially for Chauncey, who seems to coach based on what he thinks would have worked in his playing days back in 2007 when I was still in elementary school, right? And that's a reference towards, for example, talking about how a lot of length guarding him on the ball bothered him. So he puts Jeremy Grant on guards, and then he gets screened completely out of plays and lit up by every guard that he guards for the Portland Trail Blazers the past couple years. So the NBA has changed a ton. The lead assistant, I want to be an X's and O's coach, but also somebody that's a little bit more modern, because it felt like we didn't have that. Somebody a little bit more new school in terms of being a coach, because you look at the guy who won Coach of the Year this year, Mark Daigneault. He's more of a new school guy. He's somebody that people didn't know before he got hired by the Oklahoma City Thunder, and now he's winning Coach of the Year, and that team is the 1 seed and maybe the team to beat in the West, although we're going to talk about the other one right now. It's crazy how arguably the 2 teams to beat in the West are both from our division, and it's not the defending champs that are also from our division. So hopefully the Blazers one day can actually make progress towards catching up with those teams. And if it's a lead assistant that is a little bit more new school, I'd feel better about them potentially taking over for Chauncey Billups than if we had someone like, I don't know, Mike D'Antoni or some other retread.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard because I saw someone, Austin said David Adelman in chat. I mean, those big-time assistants that have been rumored to be like head coaches soon, those guys aren't going to leave their respective teams to come to Portland. So I don't think it's going to be like that. But it would be cool to find like some hotshot up-and-coming coach that, like you and Taylor said, it's going to really focus on X's and O's and bring some new schemes and some fresh ideas to this coaching staff. And then I think it's fine to have one of the two be well, actually we need 3 because Hetzel left too, but one of the 3 can be like an assistant with some head coaching experience. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. It, yeah. Yeah. You can get a balance of things with these 3 spots. It doesn't all have to be one type of coach or another. Normally, it's pretty good to have some sort of balance on your coaching staff. But it's just going to be interesting to see who they hire. Something to talk about this offseason. Ultimately, I don't think it's really going to change a whole lot. But we can hope. I tossed the Blazers Uprise merch link in the description as well, in case any of you want to get it. Here is what our merch looks like, simply because it's not showing up below for some reason. This is what our merchandise line is. We got the snapbacks, we got the sweatshirt. The white sweatshirt I think is gonna look really, really good. That's what I'm getting with the red and black logo. And then we got t-shirts, a couple different colorways for logos. And then I want to drop some like custom designed stuff in coming months. But we finally got the merch shop up and running. Shout out to Devin for helping me out with that. My guy Devin was at the lottery watch party last year. Hopefully he'll be there again this year. And we'll have to figure all that stuff out, considering we were waiting on a time. But let's just talk playoffs, Eric. The Knicks Pacers, we'll talk about this game first. This was the close game of the day, but also the one that I'm not quite as excited to talk about. Although, not that I'm not excited to talk about it, but man, I can't wait till we get to the T-Wolves. But first, the Knicks Pacers. This was a barn burner, just like a lot of the Knicks' first-round games against the Philadelphia 76ers were. This was right down to the wire. Some questionable refereeing in the final couple of minutes screws over the small-market Indiana Pacers in favor of the big-market New York Knicks. Where have we seen that before? Oh, just throughout the NBA's entire history. So the Knicks win Game 1. Halliburton was terrible, but the Pacers still almost won. TJ McConnell had a really good game. Your guy Aaron Nesmith had a poster dunk. Josh Hart was insane and almost got a triple-double. Eric, every time I watch the Knicks in the playoffs, I just find myself depressed that Josh Hart is not on the Blazers anymore. And it's like, I love seeing him do so well, and I love watching him play, but now there's an element of depression there because he's not here. And for the Knicks today, once again, played 48 minutes. It's amazing how this dude can play 48 minutes a game, doesn't rest for a second, and is constantly the hardest playing player on the court. Like, fatigue, he does not know what fatigue is. He goes 9 for 13, 1 for 1 from 3, 5 for 8 from the free throw line, 24 points, 13 rebounds, 8 assists for Josh Hartman. And Brunson as well, Villanova guys, 43 points for him. And DiVincenzo, 25 points for him. The 3 Villanova guys were insane today. My guy Hartenstein hits a half-quarter, which mattered in this game. A half-court buzzer beater at the end of the first half. Eric, that's why you shoot those shots. The Knicks win by 4. And that Hartenstein 3 was a big shot to cut it to 4 at halftime. Your thoughts on this game?
Well, like Alvaro says in chat, what's up, Albie? I wish we had a guy like Josh Hart at every position.
At every freaking position. I wish we could morph Jeremy Grant and Josh Hart together, because then that would be the best player in the league.
Yeah, I mean, argue all you want about whether we should have paid Josh Hart, but I completely agree. It sucks, man. It sucks when you think about these guys. They have OG now. There's a guy we wanted for a long time. Hartenstein is a guy, the offseason where we signed Gary Payton to a more lucrative contract than Hartenstein got, was a guy you and I both wanted the Blazers to target in that deal. It's frustrating watching like a team put together a roster around Jaylen Brunson that is maybe better than any roster Dame had, and it's just kind of frustrating, right?
Yeah, because it's not like Jaylen Brunson is a better defensive player than Dame, and offensively he's been phenomenal in this year's playoffs, but Dame was capable of everything that Jaylen Brunson is doing right now in his prime for the Blazers. So, yeah, I mean, this is the team that we always wanted constructed around Dame. And it's coached by a guy that knows how to coach a defense. And that team plays defense. And that team plays hard as hell. And it just sucks because you look at this team and it's like the Blazers were capable of building this type of roster around Dame if they made the right moves. And there is an element of frustration there when you have like a little bit of foresight on a guy like Hartenstein and then they choose GP 2 weeks instead of him. Just throwing it back to that free agency in case you guys were not there for free agency 2023. Right? Or was it 2022? It was 2022, huh? Free agency 2022. We streamed for like 8-9 hours and nothing happened. And I was like, watch, we're gonna sign someone right after we get off the stream. But we were exhausted. I was exhausted. My voice was running out. So I get off the stream, lay down. 20 minutes later, we signed GP 2 weeks. And me and Eric questioned the signing. We didn't really like the signing. Especially...
We got killed.
We got crushed. We got crushed for it by a lot of people that thought we were just trying to be negative. We wanted a guy like Hartenstein because you can't go into Drew Eubanks. You can't go into a season with Drew Eubanks as your backup center if you have playoff aspirations. The Suns learned that the hard way and got swept, right? And that dude just is not playable at that level. We wanted Isaiah Hartenstein as a really good backup center to Nurk, especially given Nurk's injury issues. And we get GP 2 weeks. Another 6'2" guard. We also needed surgery, and we didn't even know that at the time. But we questioned the signing and got crushed for it by a bunch of people that for years told us that the Blazers can't play 6'3" guards at the small forward spot. That's why Norman Powell could never work out, right? And then somehow it was GP2 can work here. So a little bit of frustrating there. You look at a guy like Hartenstein, 36 minutes. Like, he is a playoff starter on a contending team. Like, the Knicks are a contending team. I don't think they'll beat the Celtics, but right now I expect them to go to the conference finals, and Isaiah Hartenstein's a starter on that team. So it's just missteps like that where you sign a GP2 instead of a Hartenstein, where you don't keep Josh Hart. They did a great job getting Dante DiVincenzo this past offseason. That was a huge pickup for them. And that's how you have a contending team around Jaylen Brunson. And it's just frustrating because the Blazers definitely were capable of doing that around Dame and never did.
What's also funny, Tori, is the year before that, in 2021, the Blazers also had a chance to sign Isaiah Hartenstein, who would have only been a minimum contract back then. And they chose to sign Harry Giles instead. And I don't know. He became kind of a fan favorite, but never really played good outside of like a preseason game, in an actual game. So they could have also had Hartenstein a year earlier. He was just sitting out there in free agency, waiting for some team to grab him, and he actually had a training camp battle. Like won a training camp battle in LA. Like, he wasn't even guaranteed to make that roster when he signed that year either. Pretty crazy.
Yeah. Is Jaylen Brunson a top 15 player in the league now?
Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah. So the reason why I asked that is this year's NBA playoffs, and a little bit of last year's, but mainly this year's, man, is getting me to think about team building a little bit differently. And the Knicks are a perfect example for that. But also the Minnesota Timberwolves are a perfect example for that. There's more parity than ever in the NBA right now. And it seems like more and more, you just have to have a top 15 player. Doesn't even have to be top 10. Like, Jaylen Brunson, I don't think is a top 10 player, but I'll put him between, 11 and 15. You can make a case for him being top 10 given how good he was this season. But you basically just need a top 15 player, and then you need to fill out the roster with perfect role players around him, which is easier said than done. But then again, when you look at a team like the Knicks and the role players that they have playing right now, They just traded a pick that became Chris freaking Murray for Josh Hart, and look how huge Josh Hart has been for them. Dante DiVincenzo, he was an MLE signing, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, averaged 9 points for the Warriors last year. Signed this year on a full mid-level exception, right? There's a big difference between Dante DiVincenzo on your full mid-level exception and Gary Payton II, right? But a full mid-level exception and a late first-round pick gets you Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo, who have been phenomenal for the Knicks. They make the OG Anunoby trade. Yes, that's huge. They don't even have Julius Randle right now, but Hartenstein, they basically got him on a full mid-level exception. So 3 of their 5 starters, they basically spent mid-level exceptions on and a late first-round pick in to get him. Jaylen Brunson was also just a free agent signing where they paid him more than Dallas. And that's worked out phenomenally for him. And then you look at the Timberwolves. Who's playing great for them right now? Jaden McDaniels was a late first-round pick, a guy that I liked in that draft, by the way. Thought he was very underrated, and that's ended up being the case. And then they get Nickeil Alexander-Walker for essentially free, and he's been phenomenal for them. Naz Reid was an undrafted free agent like 5 years ago, and a guy that I've always wanted on the Blazers. So you just look at these teams that are contending. Of course, there's the Boston Celtics, the Denver Nuggets, right? And then OKC is just a perfect example of how to maximize a rebuild. But there's other teams out there that they got their top 15 player and they have perfect role players around them. And that's the Knicks and that's the Timberwolves. And both those teams won today. The Timberwolves are up 2-0 going back to Minnesota against the defending champs. At that point, you have to call them bona fide contenders.
Yeah, I think the key, though, is you got to find a bunch of dogs. Yep. And just find guys that just go out and compete, work their butts off, do all the dirty work, hustle, get on the floor for loose rebounds or loose balls, go get in players' faces on defense and just become a pest on that end. And when you have a collection of those guys, like some of these teams do, and then you have that one guy who can get his shot and get a bucket whenever you need it. It's just that I think is one of the best formulas moving forward. Now, a lot of these teams recently that have tried to put together the old formula of a super team, it's mostly at least 2 of them have been older. So maybe that's part of the problem with the way some of these teams are trying to build a super team, because we've seen it now since Steph's a little older, Harden's older, Durant's older. Those guys can't LeBron's obviously older. Those guys aren't carrying teams to a championship like a top 15 player we're mentioning. So they have to be more of the role players if it's a big player. I'd still like to see if a team had 3 younger-ish stars like Miami Heat in 2010 when all those guys were still in their prime. But it's definitely looking like in this league you just have to have guys who just bring it every night. And the Knicks and the Timberwolves. The Nuggets had that last year. Aaron Gordon, KCP, all those role players they had. They all brought something to the table, and maybe
they're sorely missing Bruce Brown right now.
Yeah, Bruce Brown. That's the guy I forgot. But the thing with them is, when you win a title, do you kind of lose that edge a little bit, maybe? I don't know if that's necessarily the case or they're just running into a buzzsaw right now, but they definitely don't have that same level of toughness. And as Eric Olson said, they got kind of soft.
But I also don't think they got challenged like this by a team that plays like this.
Yeah.
Jamal Murray is struggling. The thing is like, I don't feel like it's the case where they're just complacent because they won last year, because they just won in 5 against LeBron and the Lakers, and Jamal Murray had some really big moments that game. And even in games he struggled, he was able to get going late. He hasn't been able to get going at all during either of these 2 games, and partly it's because, like, Minnesota, the way they defend, and you could tell they get in your head.
He's playing hurt, too.
Still, though, like, he threw a heating pack onto the court during live action.
Yeah, that's not good.
Like Denver was rattled mentally by the level of defense and hustle and physicality that Minnesota played with in this game. And it was something to behold. And I don't know. Last year, yes, they probably beat this Minnesota team, but I think this Minnesota team would have been the best matchup for Denver's team last year. I think they would have had a chance to beat Denver's team last year, just because when you play defense at this level, and you talked about, like, it'd be interesting to see a team like this Minnesota team go against a, super team with a young big 3. The thing is just there's more and more players these days that are offensively gifted where it's not as much of an edge. Because I just look at a game like this, like, if you have a big 3, like the Heat big 3, all guys in their prime, Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns have a chance to match those guys offensively on any given night. You need a third guy to step up, but with role players becoming even better and better at shooting the 3 ball, like Alexander Walker, 4 for 7, Naz Reid, a backup center, 4 for 8 from 3. Then all of a sudden you have these role guys that can step up and be a third scorer, step up and make some shots. And I just think that's why there's more parity in the NBA nowadays, and that's why you have a team like Minnesota who, without Rudy Gobert, just blew out the Denver Nuggets in Denver by 26.
Well, if you remember, the Nuggets did play the Timberwolves last year in the playoffs, and after it was all said and done, several Nuggets players said that the Timberwolves were their toughest opponent in the first round. So, yeah, and obviously this Timberwolves team is a little better than that team. So,
they're much better. What was last year's Timberwolves team ranked defensively?
I don't know, but
I'm looking it up right now. They were ranked 10th defensively. This year, they were ranked 1st.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big jump.
But most of their jump is just internal, and so like it's not like they had some big offseason acquisition that's propelling them to this, right? It's all players that were on the team last year, for the most part. I know that they have Monte Morris and a couple players that weren't, but what I mean. Like,
it's a testament to their young players, and it's a testament to the coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you make a big trade, and it's not like a 1-year build. Is another thing to learn from them. Their adjusted defensive rating went from 100 and let's see here. Last year it was 113.7, tied for 10th. This year it was 108.9, which is the best in the NBA by 2.3 points, which is insane. That's actually insane. There is a smaller gap between Boston at 2 and Memphis at 12, the tanking, super injured Memphis team. There's a closer gap between Boston and Memphis than there is between Minnesota and Boston defensively. That's how good their defense is. So, shout out to them. Offensively, they're 17th, Eric, and this is kind of the other thing I'm thinking about. Like, offensively, they're not good. They just have a couple stars.
Yeah.
And maybe it's something I always think about the Blazers and the way they should go about things based on stuff I see in the playoffs, right? And seeing a Minnesota team like this makes me think, like, man, maybe we should just worry about getting as good of a defense as possible. But we need to find that Anthony Edwards type guy, right? I think that's the 2 goals. Find an Anthony Edwards type guy. Maybe it's not quite as so good. Maybe it's a Jaylen Brunson. But if you can find that guy and get as good of a defense as possible, then you have a chance to win. You have a chance to contend. Because Minnesota is the 17th ranked offense this year, and they have come into this playoffs, swept a super team in the Phoenix Suns, and won both games in Denver against the defending champs. And it's because of their defense.
And you know what? All these teams have, Tori. Like, even the Pacers, who suck at defense, but they kind of do this more offensively.
Yeah.
They just, like, keep, like, it's just, like, swarm, and it just feels like they're just going at you the whole freaking game, right? Like it feels like a dogfight, and, like, the pace is just like, holy crap. And, like...
You know what that is? That's consistent effort.
Right.
And just sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to say I'm tired of, oh, we had good effort tonight just because, like, one player dived on the floor per quarter. Because that's the bar for Blazer fans, but that's not what true consistent effort looks like. It looks like what you're talking about.
And that's the thing. It's like all these teams that are playing well have established their identity of that's how they're going to play. And this is exactly what Chauncey said when he became the coach, and then the next year at Media Day, and then the next year at Media Day, right? They're going to play like this. They're going to be dogs. They're going to be the type of team no one wants to play. They're going to be all over the place and all that kind of stuff. We haven't seen that at all. And that's a product, in my opinion, of poor coaching. And, like, you can get teams to play this way. You need the players. Obviously, not everyone can do like what Josh Hart is doing for 46 minutes a game, you know. But, like, for the most part, you can, if you want your team to play like this, you establish that as the coach. And so we see a team like Denver who's really well coached, but they're kind of a more methodical type team. And so when you see them play a team like Minnesota, who's just, like, up and down the court and just all over the place, swarming you on defense, and you know, you can't, I don't know how you stop Anthony Edwards right now. That guy is just like a physical freak, and, like, he uses power and strength and speed, and he can get to the rim with ease. He can get a shot over pretty much any defender. And so, like, when you have that combination, it makes a team that, I don't know, like, it's always been, you know, you have to have a good half-court offense to win a championship. And Minnesota hasn't won anything yet, so they could very easily still lose this series or whatever. But it's like, I don't know, it feels like the teams that have this, like, killer mindset and just are going to play and be a pain in the butt for 48 minutes, no matter who's on the floor, those teams seem to be having success more so than the teams that are just kind of like old school. We're going to run our offense and we're going to play a drop coverage defense. And it's passive, and that's not like looking like it's going to work anymore. Like, you have to be aggressive. And this is what we've been begging for Portland to do for years. Yeah,
you got to be aggressive defensively. You got to have that mindset, or you have to be an absolutely elite offense like the Pacers, right? Because the Pacers are second in offensive rating and 24th in defensive rating, right? And they're 13th in net rating. But what I say, they have an identity, and it's that they're going to run the floor. They play at the second fastest pace in the league. They have the second shortest offensive possession in the league. They're going to get threes up, and they're a very capable shooting team. Ninth best three-point percentage, but the number one mid-range team, number 7 finishing at the rim, so they're efficient, and they're just going to run at you and wear you down with their pace, right? And that's the key thing. When you look at the Knicks, the Pacers, the Timberwolves, they wear you down. And the Nuggets tonight looked worn down, and they're the team that's used to playing in altitude, not Minnesota. It's very cold in Minnesota, but they're not used to playing, 500 or 5,280 feet above sea level. It's funny because there was a tweet today that I saw that was funny because it basically said, wow, Denver really took the 52-80 thing seriously because that's what they were down in this game. So Minnesota just wears you down. There's a reason why in my predictions, man, I said this was a terrible matchup for the Nuggets. This is like if they can come back in the series and beat the Timberwolves, I think they're winning it all again. But I think, Boston, of course, a really good team. They could definitely beat Denver. But Minnesota's a terrible matchup for them due to their length. And a big part of that was Gobert. But without Gobert today, it didn't matter because they defend, they're physical, they rotate really, really well. So that's the thing. If you're defending a guy like Jokic, you send 2 to him. He makes a kick-out pass. If it's the Blazers defending him, that kick-out pass is just a wide-open 3 every freaking time. And you almost got to let Jokic play one-on-one, and then you're getting cooked. That's how it happens for the Blazers. But you look at a team like Minnesota, they force Jokic to kick the ball out, and they're rotating and making those what would be open threes really, really tough threes. If Jokic is putting the ball on the floor from the top of the key, they're stunting at the ball, bothering his drive, but they're not giving up an open 3 out of it. They're stunting, timing it, getting back out on the shooter when the kickout pass is made. And it's just this constant flow defensively where you're not getting beat off the dribble all the time like the Blazers do. But then if you do have to send help or do have to send a second body, they cover for that guy. They rotate behind that guy. And it's not 2 people rotating to one guy so then somebody else is completely wide open. It's not a bunch of mistakes that you see constantly with the Blazers. And that's the problem that I've had with Chauncey is, yes, you have a young team, but when you have 2 guys guarding a pick and roll and they're both playing completely separate coverages, like on completely different pages, then what the hell are you doing? That's not a youth excuse. That's you got 2 players that don't know exactly what they're supposed to be doing on a pick and roll type thing. And then you go out there and run drop scheme the second half of the year and teach these guys to be passive defensively. And then we're sitting here, getting frustrated with guys jogging back on defense and playing terrible transition defense. And it's a culture and identity issue. So that's where, a lot of the criticism for Chauncey comes in. But man, I am super jealous of this Timberwolves team and the way they play and how hard some of these teams actually play in the identities that they have. The Blazers have to build towards that. I don't know if they're capable.
Yeah, so in case you guys missed it or living under a rock or something, go watch Tori's season breakdown of Scoot's game this year. And for the first time, Tori used video, spent a lot of time on it. So please go watch
20 to 25 hours on that video, man.
Please go watch that if you haven't already after the show.
Yeah.
Or tomorrow or something. But anyways, dude, what would happen to Scoot? I know you watched some of his defensive plays. If he was doing what you saw him do on defense, on like this Timberwolves team or this New York Knicks team, what do you think Thibodeau or Chris Finch is doing?
They wouldn't stand for it.
Right.
They wouldn't stand for it. But the thing is Chauncey doesn't know how to not stand for it.
Because I don't think he would even do it. Like, he would get his butt back on defense because that's what's...
If Scoot was playing for Minnesota right now, he would be playing harder defense than we saw him play at all this season.
Yeah.
The thing is, my hope is Scoot takes it upon himself to set the tone in years to come better than he did as a rookie because stuff was coming at him 1,000 miles an hour. Once the game slows down for him, I hope that he truly is that dog and truly is that guy that can change the culture with this team because some of it has to come from within. And part of it is you got a guy like Anthony Edwards. You got Mike Conley, who's a good vet that actually plays some defense, unlike Malcolm Brogdon, who's not the best defender. You got guys that will set the culture, but then you also got a coach that also helps establish that culture. And right now the Blazers don't have any of that. Hopefully in the future Scoot can be that guy, but you're probably going to need a different coach to be that guy. Hopefully you can bring in a couple assistants that are capable of being that guy under Chauncey Billups, and hopefully that's part of what this coaching shakeup is. Yeah,
why didn't the great mentorship from Malcolm Brogdon teach him to get back on defense?
I don't know, man.
Well, it's just, like, not even the defense. Like, Chauncey specifically said he wanted to play fast this year, and then we don't play fast. Like, it just, like, nothing makes sense to me.
Nothing he says he wants to do, he actually, like, makes progress towards doing. And people...
It doesn't translate, yeah.
People defend the coach in a rebuild by just viewing things on a results-based, like, analysis model, where it's just, what is the total outcome of this? Oh, yes, of course they're going to struggle because they're super young. But you should be able to.
What other coach could get them to a championship this year, Torrey?
Yeah, but, and the point we've made all season long is you should be able to at least make some sort of progress towards playing with a specific identity if it's being preached day in, day out for a 6-month season, and guys are held accountable to play up to that identity. And especially if they're young, they should improve towards that because they have the most room for improvement and they have the least experience. So you should see progress and you should see steps towards whatever identity the head coach is preaching. And that's the biggest worrying thing for me is that Chauncey preaches playing fast, playing aggressive defense, and they don't take any steps towards that. Even at the start of the year where they were forcing a lot of turnovers. They forced a lot of turnovers this year. 6th highest rate in the league. It was up at like number 2 highest rate in the league earlier in the season. But they weren't getting out and running off of them. They were still a bottom half of the league paced team with a bunch of young guys who I was going back and watching, a bunch of clips, putting together these reviews. There will be more coming later this month. I'm going to have to sprinkle them in among some other videos because they take me forever. But I was watching like Kamara in the open court. Looked good, man. And I'm watching good and bad plays, but Kamara looked good. Sharp looked good, especially with the ball in his hands. He looked even better than I remember, just like knowing when to attack in transition and mixing up his pace a little bit in transition. Scoot had some of his best moments in transition. Like, there is no reason for this team to not be playing at one of the fastest paces in the league, and they weren't, even though the coach was supposedly preaching it, and then the aggressive defense thing turns into drop scheme the second half of the year, and that's just where, man, I don't think Chauncey is capable of getting his teams to progress towards playing with a certain identity, like some of these teams that are in the playoffs right now with, role players that weren't viewed highly, but, once they get to Minnesota, then they look really good. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who we gave up on for injured Joe Ingles. When they get to New York, Josh Hart is playing 48 minutes a game. All we could talk about before we traded him was like, man, he's so scared to shoot. He's not that good because he's scared to shoot. Now he's playing 48 minutes for a contender in the Knicks. Dante DiVincenzo is another guy. So that's just where it does give the GM a little bit of margin for error. If you got a culture and identity and you're able to bring players in to that culture and get the most out of them. Miami did it for years. Now the Knicks are doing it. Now the Timberwolves are doing it. The Blazers could do it someday if they took the right steps, but it would require having the right people in charge.
Yeah. Someone is confused in chat saying Ty Lue got fired. That was Darvin Ham that got fired, not Tyronn Lue.
Yeah.
Actually talking about Lue getting an extension. But yeah, that's what, tying this back to the coaching change, that's why I wanted a new coaching staff in here. Just maybe someone can feel comfortable telling Chauncey, hey, look, you're trying to preach all these things, but we're not implementing them. We're not making it that way. We're not establishing what you want as your identity. Mm-hmm. So hopefully someone can get in his ear about that and teach him that you can't just say all these things and then just have them magically happen. You have to get your team to do what you want. And you're the coach, so you can make that whatever you want it to be. So yeah, I don't know. I still don't have very much hope for Chauncey, just becoming a hammer coach like that. But I mean, this definitely can't hurt to try something different if we're going to keep him around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to segue this into the next topic, Eric. This entire conversation. Okay. But before we get to that, if you guys want to participate in our mock off season, we have a few spots open. We have more people than we do spots left, but I want to give everyone a chance to ask to be in our mock off season. You can message me on Twitter or message me on Discord or DM me on Twitter. Twitter or Discord, reach out to me. Let me know. We're going to take requests to join the mock off season through tomorrow, and anybody that requests after tomorrow, no chance of being accepted, and then we'll narrow down who gets the final few spots in our mock off season, and that will start mid-May. We'll have more information on that shortly in terms of the dates for everything for those participating. But if you're not participating and want to keep up with all the mock off-season moves, you can join our Discord, link in the description box below. If you're not sure what the mock off-season is, we take 30 people from our community, including me and Eric, and we each run a team through an NBA offseason, draft, trades, free agency, and we follow all CBA rules, and we keep track of everyone's roster with a Google Sheet. It's very, very nerdy. It's like GM roleplay, but it's a lot of fun.
Try to follow the CBA rules this year.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to prepare for the offseason, and people get to learn the CBA through it, and, it motivates people to scout prospects. It's a lot of fun to interact with people, so if you want to partake in that, let me know. We'll have that in our Discord, and we'll talk about it a little bit on stream here in the coming weeks. Looking forward to that. And as Connor says, try not to get fleeced by Jackson. And Zach's returning this year, which is cool.
One Piece says he tried to message you on Discord, but
if you message me, then I probably have gotten your message. But always feel free to message me again.
He said he had to be your friend or something. I don't know.
Yeah. There, I accepted his friend request. Message me on Discord. If you have to send me a friend request, feel free to do that, or message me on Twitter. But Eric, what I wanted to do is segue this into talking about big boards, and we'll do a tankathon sim as we normally do. This will be one of our final tankathon sims with the lottery less than a week away. But I have moved Donovan King up to 6 on my big board. A big part of it is because of what I'm seeing in the playoffs this year, Eric. Being able to play defense at that level, the level the Timberwolves are, Donovan King is limited, very limited as an offensive player. Doesn't have much upside because of that, but if he can be a top 5 rim protector, which I think he has a chance to be, as well as just a lob target, if he can just be 75% of what Gobert is, 80% of what Gobert is, anything close to what Gobert is, then he's a very valuable player defensively as a big man, and especially in a draft this week. Like, it's tough for me not to move him up, especially seeing how the Timberwolves are locking down a team like Denver right now. So I'm getting a little higher on a guy like him, and then I look at a guy like Devin Carter, and Devin Carter is one of those dogs that you talked about. Guys just play their ass off and can make shots and would fit this type of culture. So for me, it's hard to not bump him up into the late lottery right now. So I think my big board is changing, but it's as much due to what I'm seeing in the playoffs right now as it is changing my opinions on certain players.
Yeah, I still wonder. I still don't know if Klingon's foot speed is quick enough to do like what Gobert does, or even Walker Kessler. But I see the vision. I see why you have it that way. How do I explain it? His foot speed doesn't look too impressive when he's in space, but he closes ground on his final step before he tries to block shots. Like, if somebody has him beat, that final step and then his jump is pretty quick, and he's able to recover and block shots on guys that beat him off the dribble. I think he's going to have the foot speed to be able to be a very good NBA defender, and that's why I'm higher on him. Yes, it is a little bit of a question mark, but when you look at a draft where anybody 6 through 10 has question marks, yeah,
that's one of the lower end question marks compared to some other guys in that range for me.
I have a player that I have. I'm starting to question my thoughts on him.
Who?
Cody Williams.
I am too.
I'm worried that he doesn't like to shoot threes. Because it's such a low volume, and then I saw something where someone went back through all his AAU, his high school, basically any time he had played since middle school, and it was all like super low volume threes. But
Yeah.
outside of this year, his percentage has not been great from three.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's like, well, why are you scared to shoot?
Yeah.
Like,
And given struggles like that in the past, it's harder to put stock in his 3-point percentage this year, considering it is on a small sample size, considering how low of a volume of threes he shoots.
yeah. So I don't know if he's necessarily falling below like someone like Ricochet or something who also I have question marks about, but um, it's just yeah, I don't know. I'm starting to wonder if he's maybe should be like 10 or later. It's still a lottery pick in my mind, but I don't know if I'm taking him like top 5, top 7 anymore.
You know what's funny is he's ninth on my big board right now. It's funny you bring that up because I had the same exact thoughts that you did. And I was debating sliding him to 10 below Collier. And it's going to be harder to slide him much lower than that. But I don't know, man. Like, he and Jalen Tyson, who I love, played in the Pac-12. So played similar competition in the Pac-12. Like, you could convince me to value Jalen Tyson over Cody Williams at this point because he shoots a high volume of threes. He shoots them confidently. And in this year's playoffs, like, there was a podcast talking about this. I think it was No Ceilings. And they were just talking about how, like, you got to have guys that do a little bit of everything. Like, or that do, like, two things really, really well. And I look at a guy like Jalen Tyson, I just love the way that he's capable of doing a bunch of different things on the floor, being able to read the defense, being able to, I think he can be a good defender, especially if he's not running an entire offense. So, I don't know. I'm definitely going to revisit both those guys and compare their film, but there's a chance that I put him below Tyson, and Ricochet's at 12 for me. And his lack of assertiveness in general kind of bothers me, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know he was injured late in the year, but it would have showed me a lot if he was like injured, but he was trying to get himself going as one of the best offensive options on that Colorado team. And he seemed more content to just take a back seat and act like he was the 8th best player on that team. And that just bothers me. That bothers me a little bit. And I'm trying not to get caught up being like, okay, well, is he better than his brother Jalen Williams was his freshman year after Santa Clara? Yes, like as a freshman, Cody Williams is better than Jalen Williams was. But Cody Williams is his own prospect, and the last thing I want to do, especially after taking Chris Murray in last year's draft, is get caught up evaluating Cody Williams based on what Jalen Williams is in the NBA for the Thunder.
Yeah, the only thing... I mean, Jalen Tyson is 21. He'll be 22 later this year. So, like, I'm not saying that that's, like, bad or whatever, but if Cody Williams is, like, 19, does he still have a chance of, in 3 years, being that guy? Like, maybe he's just, it's just young and, like, I don't know. Like, he does have some traits that you look for in a guy who could pop when he figures it out. So I don't mind swinging for Cody Williams over a Jalen Tyson and just hoping that he, eventually figures it all out and maybe he can become a little aggressive. Maybe when he gets a little stronger, it helps his game out. But I do understand why you would feel more safe taking a guy who's already proven that versus someone who hasn't really shown it yet. But
yeah, because I think Tyson has a noticeably higher floor. I think the age thing for Cody Williams does give him ultimately like a higher upside, a higher ceiling. But as I always say with ceiling, it's like it's not just where that ceiling is, it's how likely a player is to reach that ultimate ceiling. And I feel like day one, Jalen Tyson is going to be a better NBA player than Cody Williams. Yes, Cody Williams is 2 years younger, but will he catch up to where Jalen Tyson is now in those 2 years? I think there's a chance that maybe he doesn't, and maybe part of that is mental, which isn't necessarily like super easy to fix, especially as you go up to the NBA level, right? Like, I'd rather have a guy that's just supremely confident, like wants to go out there and kill other teams and makes a lot of mistakes, but has that mindset from the jump and can work on his mistakes, than a guy who is passive and not assertive and not confident in his three-point shot. And you know who I'm referencing with that. Like, that's why I still am a Scoot Henderson believer, because I love his mindset, and I'm willing to bank on that panning out in the long term. That's where I'm worried with Cody Williams. He has, the strength questions, and there's just a lot of his finishes. He finished well, but it's not like he's finishing strong. He shies away from contact and finishes plays at the college level. Will that work in the NBA? I'm not sure. But he's not somebody that creates contact. Some of that is the strength, but some of that might be a mindset thing too. So there's a chance that I lower him even more than 9, but that's where I have him right now.
Yeah, measurements will be interesting to see too, because Cody looks taller. They're both listed the same height, but I think Cody's definitely taller than Tyson. So if he's like an inch and a half taller with a longer wingspan, that might factor in a little bit as well. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with the production, like you said, on the court. Tyson has an advantage there.
Yeah, and then I moved Jameer Watkins back up inside my top 20. I have him in 19 right now.
Nice.
As long as he's big enough to regularly play the 3 spot, I think he can defend a little bigger than he is. Like, he's physical. But Eric is just kind of what I said with Tyson a little bit, but Jameer Watkins is more of a defender. But he also had some really impressive moments of passing, some really impressive moments of handling the ball in a pick and roll, reading a defense. I value all that stuff a lot. He's a decent athlete, and he rebounds the ball decently, does a lot of those little things. And if there's any player that is this year's Herb Jones, I'm telling you it's him. Yeah. And Herb Jones was a guy I loved in his draft. I don't think he's quite Herb Jones defensively, and I don't think he's as big of a presence as Herb Jones, because Herb Jones has just a massive wingspan, but that's where measurements will be interesting for a guy like Jameer Watkins. But I think he'll come in right away and be a solid to good defender. Plays a bit like a dog, right? So if you're looking at getting role players with that sort of attitude, energy, effort, hustle, and defensive ability, I love that for him. But then, you can't just be a dog. You can't just be somebody that plays hard, right? You got to be able to read the floor. You got to be able to make plays. You got to be able to knock down shots. I think he has the potential to do all that. So I have him at 19 right now.
Nice. Yeah, that's another guy that measurements are going to be interesting. See what his actual height is and stuff.
Yeah. If he's in the second round there at 34, I will be begging us to take him. I am so confident he will at least be a role player. And there's a lot of mock drafts that have him late second. He is this year's Jalen Tyson was my second round sleeper guy, but now he's not a second rounder. He is this year's Torrey Jones certified second round sleeper. I'm putting my stamp on him right now.
Nice. Ryan asked when the combine starts. Starts Sunday, I think. Well, the G League part of it, or the lesser guys, starts the next few days, I think.
Yeah. And
then Sunday is when all the guys come to town. I don't know when the actual measurements and stuff are. They might start Monday. But yeah, they're all there for the draft lottery.
Where do we realistically see Zach Edey getting picked in the draft? Asks Kevin. We got Kevin in here. What's up, Kevin?
Kevin.
15 to 20 is where I'm guessing. And I could see his floor maybe being Phoenix at 22.
I could see him going anywhere from 12 to 35. I don't know.
I think it makes sense for New York to take a flyer on him with one of their 2 picks. I think that truly is where his floor is. I think New York will take a swing for him just with one. They have the 24th and 25th picks and the 38th pick, and Mitchell Robinson not playing much, has had his injury issues, so you get a guy that at least can like change the dynamic and is a physical presence, and their identity is crashing the offensive glass. They're the best offensive rebounding team, so you bring in a guy like that. He doesn't really fit their pace and their tempo, so maybe he's not the right pick for them, but I just see, like so many teams with the need of a backup center with like New Orleans. They got Larry Nance Jr. and Valanciunas. Larry Nance Jr. a little undersized, and he's hurt a lot. So
Valanciunas is a free agent.
And Valanciunas is a free agent. Cleveland doesn't really have an entrenched backup center. Phoenix has Drew Eubanks, their backup center. Milwaukee, Brook Lopez, there's question marks around him and his future on that team. And Bobby Portis is like a 4-5, and they run a lot of drop with Brook Lopez, so that's probably what they'd run with Edey, so I can see that being a fit for him. So I think there's enough landing spots there in that range for him to go. But, I mean, he's being talked about as a lottery pick, and there's no way if I'm Milwaukee or Phoenix or one of these teams that I take him over a guy like Missy.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Knicks. Well, the problem is a lot of those teams I could see. I mean, Ishbia has already come out and said that they're trading the 22nd pick and their 2031 pick. So, did you see what he said about that?
Oh yeah, the 26 teams would trade their situation for Phoenix's
well, he said that,
and all that.
That in addition, but he also said of the 2031 pick that if you're a fan that cares about like what a 7th grader is doing right now, like you're not going to like the Phoenix Suns because we don't care about future draft picks and stuff like that.
Okay, Billy King.
Yeah, exactly. That's what Crushable said.
Like, you legitimately have multiple instances of NBA history where that thinking has completely backfired on an organization and set them back a decade.
And you have multiple examples of teams that hit on a mid to late first-round pick or even a second-round pick, and it completely changed the direction of their franchise.
Yeah. I mean, Denver, for crying out loud, right? Like, the Timberwolves got Jaden McDaniels with a pick later than 22, and it took them a couple years, and the problem is for Phoenix, they really don't have that time. So, like, I agree with the idea of trading it, but listen, if Devin Carter is there at 22, they should not trade the pick, and they should just take Devin Carter.
Right.
I've told Gabe that. I've told Suns fans that. Like, I don't think Devin Carter will be there at 22, but that dude would come in right away and, in my opinion, be a better version of Javon Carter. Yeah. They need a point of attack defender. They need a point guard that can bring the ball up, and he's not like a ball-dominant point guard. Like, he can play off the ball. He improved as a shooter, can attack closeouts, had some impressive finishes last year at Providence that I could see translating up to the NBA level. So I love his fit. And, like, if they drafted him, I would start him and, like, maybe bring Beal off the bench. Although they don't really have a 3 to justify bringing Beal off the bench. They probably go Booker and Beal 2-3, which I think is a little bit of a problem. But, like, you need that type of guy, that hustle, effort, energy guy if you're Phoenix. And Devin Carter, he is, like, that's one of my favorite draft fits this year for a team and a player. Yeah. And if you're going into the draft, like, we're just going to trade it no matter what, you're not even open to the possibility that he could fall to 22, and then you would take him. So what are you going to get for those 2 first-round picks, especially 22 in a draft that not a lot of GMs love, as well as a 2031 pick that is so far down the line that most GMs trading for it probably aren't going to be with their team by the time that comes around? It's 2 first-round picks, but it's going to be tough to get, like, a ton of value back for that. Mm-hmm. But then again, they traded for nothing for Bradley Beal, so who knows, but it's going to be rough.
I mean, I mentioned this on Hoops Crush Story, but I don't know, man, that 2031 pick, I would do anything to get my hands on that. The way they're going, you know?
Yeah. Well, the other problem is they're not able to trade for much salary.
Yeah.
Like, they can't combine salary. Like, if they could, funny enough, if they could combine Yusuf Nurkic and Nasir Little to match Malcolm Brogdon because they need a point guard, and we could trade up from like 34 to 22, as well as get their 2031 first-round pick, like, I'd do that in a freaking heartbeat, right? That's a bit of an overpay asking for 2 first-round picks there, but that's just an example. Like, I'd do that in a heartbeat, but the problem is they can't do that because they can't combine Nurk's salary with Nasir Little's because they can't aggregate salaries because they're in the super tax. Mm-hmm. So they basically, if they're trading Nurk, which opens up another hole that they then have to fill, so it doesn't make sense. They already have to fill their backup center spot. How are they going to fill their starting
problem
center?
we had for a long time, Like, Nurk was the only contract we had to trade, but then it was like, well, then who's our center if we trade him for, like, OG and picks or,
Exactly. So it's basically Nasir Little is your trade chip, who's making, what, $7 million next year? So you're going to trade both those picks for a player making less than $7 million? Who the hell is that guy? Or you're going to trade Nurkic and trade for somebody making less than $16 million?
It'd have to be a center too, right?
Yeah, like, what center is out there that you're trading Nurkic and 2 picks for that really changes the trajectory of that team? Because they need a backup center, and they need a point of attack defender, and they need a long, versatile forward. So I don't know, man. That's tough.
Well, Ayton makes double Nurk, so there'd have to be someone making under 17 or 18 million.
Yeah, because it's 100% matching rules now. Starting this offseason, it was 110% last year, correct? And then this year it rolls down to 100% for teams in the super tax. They can only bring back somebody. They can't combine salary, and then they have to take back less salary than they're trading out, essentially. And their biggest contract they would trade is Nurk. I guess they could trade Beal, but he has a no-trade clause.
Yeah. That's like, I know there's teams like just jokingly, the Blazers. I would I would take Beal if we got that 2031 pick, even though he gets like 160 million over the next 3 years.
Yeah, give us 22 and the 2031 pick, and I'll trade him Robert Williams III too to be their backup center.
Yeah.
Which would actually be pretty damn good trade for them, but
we know Beal isn't accepting here. Yeah, I saw something where the Jazz would be interested in that 2031 pick. But yeah, he's not going to accept a trade to Utah either.
Yeah.
I think Miami is the only place he would probably accept.
That's probably what it comes down to, Eric, is can they convince him to want to go anywhere? And then can they trade him there in like a 3-team trade where, like, hypothetically Miami would send us some salary and then we'd trade them like Brogdon and Robert Williams III for their draft capital. That is their best hope.
Gabe hasn't been listening. He said we'll give you Eubanks straight up for Time Lord.
I think he's trolling. But yeah. Yeah. It's a rough salary position. Robert Williams makes $12 million, so even if they wanted to trade like Nas for him, they can't combine Nas's salary to match.
Yeah.
So they can't trade for Robert Williams unless they trade Nurkic, but that defeats the whole purpose of it. Or unless they trade Beal to a 3rd team. Like, legitimately, their only way of not trading Nurkic and trading for a player that makes more than $7 million next year is by trading Beal to a 3rd team, but they have to get him to want to go to that 3rd team because he has a no-trade clause. That's why their position is so tough this offseason.
They basically have to do what they did with Ayton and trade him for, like, 3 or 4 pieces, right?
Yeah. But the lower you get in salary, the harder it is to, like, diversify that salary into multiple playable pieces.
Well, I was thinking to Miami for, like, Hero and Duncan Robinson or something. I don't know if Miami would do that, but
wasn't that too much salary? How much is Beal making?
I think it's like over 50 million.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget.
And I think Hero and Duncan Robinson's like 45 million or something.
Yeah, you're right. I'm thinking of like lower. Jeez, he's really making that much. I'm thinking
Yeah,
of
it's
lower
like,
max tiers than that.
like I just said, it's like
But yeah, he's been in the league
160 over
over
the
10
next 3 years. Yeah.
because he came in with Dame in 2012. Man, that's their only hope because then they could diversify his salary. But it's like, why would Miami trade Hero and Duncan Robinson for Beal?
I don't know. Maybe they think Beal's just he does fit better with Butler and Bam than he does with Booker and Durant. But yeah,
And would Beal want to do that? Because it's not like Miami was any better than Phoenix was this year.
I don't know, man.
Like basically James Jones and Ishbia have to go to Bradley Beal and bully him into wanting out. You freaking sucked for us this year. We need to trade you. Accept a trade somewhere. We don't want you. And then maybe he's like, okay, fine, I'll take a trade to Miami. And then that's on the table. That's the one thing with the no trade clause is like, could organizations bully a player into accepting it because he doesn't want to be there because they're bullying him into waiving the no trade clause?
3 years left.
How bad does Ishbia want to win, Eric?
I don't know. We're gonna find out he paid him like $100 million under the table to like go away. The wave is no trade.
Oh man, wouldn't he be forced into selling the team? Like he'd be banned, right? Like that's bannable stuff.
Probably.
Bannable stuff. Speaking of bannable stuff, Grayson for Scoot. Okay, bro.
Grayson can't be traded this offseason anyway, so
Shutting it down. Shutting it down.
he can't be traded. I think he can't be traded till the first day of the regular season. It's 6 months for any extension now.
Well, you know what's interesting is, so that was an extension that starts next year, correct?
Yeah.
That could be a good move if they wait.
Yeah.
Because that's $15.6 million of salary at the trade deadline that you can send out with whoever you took with the 22nd pick. If that player's looking decent and you have a 2031 first at your disposal, and then you can use Grayson Allen as a $15.6 million trade chip, you can bring back up to that much money. And that's probably your best trade chip because they, I assume Eric Gordon is coming back, and they already got Beal, and they already got Booker, they already got a lot of two guards. So I think that's the best route. You draft with 22, and then you try and flip Grayson with 22 and the 2031 first for something at the deadline. But we'll see. We'll see. Grayson balled out. Didn't he struggle in the playoffs?
He got hurt.
He got hurt in game 3?
I thought it was game 1.
Was it game 1? Well, I think he rolled his ankle and then he rolled it worse. I could be wrong.
He didn't play well after game 1 because he was hurt. Yeah.
I mean, he's good, but you need other things than what he provides. Mm-hmm. You have what he provides, which is a 2-guard that can shoot the 3 ball and like attack a closeout off the dribble.
I mean, he was really good in the regular season.
Yeah, he led the league in 3-point percentage, 46%. Can you expect him to lead the league in 3-point percentage again? Because that's a hard number to follow up. Even if he's 40%, that's really, really good, but that's what he's been for his career, and then you got the 46%. I don't know, it's going to be hard to expect him to shoot that well again because that's an insane number. So you need other things. So if you can turn him into other things, if you can turn him into a point guard that can defend at the point of attack and like a big versatile defensive forward, then you absolutely do that, in my opinion. Depending on who those players are, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, let's do Tankathon. Is there any other players that you've been moving along your big board?
Not really.
Alrighty then.
I don't fluctuate a lot this time of year.
Yeah, I think this year is my big board's going to be a lot more fluid. Of course, we'll
Yeah.
talk about this after measurements because I assume you'll adjust guys based on measurements, but
Yeah, and then obviously like a little bit of team needs and where
yeah,
teams end up on Sunday will
yeah,
factor into mock drafts and stuff. So.
yeah, of course, of course. But yeah, I don't know. Like, there's always stuff you can learn about prospects, even this time of year. Always more film to watch. It's always interesting after I have formulated opinions to hear other people's opinions, and maybe there's something that I'm missing out on or overthinking or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
Speaking
like
of crustables, let's stop talking about them.
I am trying to like reapproach Nikola Topic with a completely fresh mind.
That's funny. I was doing the same. I think we are kind of well. I don't know if I was ever quite as harsh as you were on him, but
Where do you have him on your big board right now?
I still have him in that same range. But I think it's just because I like players above him too much.
I have him at 7 right now. I
Yeah,
bumped him up to 7.
nice.
But his red flags are definitely a concern. Like, I
Mm,
don't think he's. I'm not going to put him above Holland, Buzelis, or Dillingham or Sarr.
yeah,
I don't think. Maybe. But somebody like that who I've like had reservations about, I always think it's good this time of year to like reapproach them with a fresh mindset
yeah, absolutely.
and try not to let any preconceived notions like sway you when you dive back into the film. Because
I'll wait
sometimes
for you
I
to
feel
do that
like
Ricochet.
when a guy's like projected, well, Ricochet, Eric, I have done that multiple times, and
I
every
know.
single time I come away with it like I don't think he's top 10 prospect. So, especially as he has continued to struggle to shoot. Like Topic is a guy, Klingen's a guy that I've like revisited and moved up a little bit. Ricochet's not going to be one of those guys. I can just tell you that right now because I've revisited him multiple times. But there is a certain, I feel like maybe I do this, maybe other people do this, but when a player is projected in number one talks, you're more likely to start trying to pick apart their game with like a guy like Topic is like, man, he has a lot of question marks, a lot of red flags to be talked about as the potential number one overall pick. And then maybe you start thinking about those too much, you become a little bit too negative on him. So that's why I think, especially a guy like him, it's always good to revisit him this time around, this time of year. I don't think he's going to be in my top 5, but 6, 7 range. I think, I think he has some level of upside just as a big shot creator with good feel, playmaker for others, really good passer, that sort of stuff. I'm concerned about his shot. Eric Olson says, Torrey, aren't Topic's red flags like Buzelis's? Yeah, I mean, Buzelis has red flags too, but he's 6'10" and can handle. So, and his shot looks better to me. And I trust his defensive role more than Topic's.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I have Buzelis above him.
I think for me, I usually watch a lot of games and stuff, or I try to watch as many as possible. But this year, I feel like I watched a lot more live games than I normally do, and so like I feel like I don't know, I have a little bit better. I don't know, like I had more like data in my mind on each player, so I'm not really like, even if I watch, like I'll pick players every couple days and be like, okay, I'm going to do a deep dive on this guy, like I'm sure you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of confirming what I already thought of them. It's like I haven't really come across a player I'm like, wow, this guy is really blowing me away the more I think about it, or this guy is like really, like I'm really down on this guy now that I think about it,
Yeah, I feel that. Look at this mock draft. Klingen at 4 for the Blazers and Salon at 14. You'd be happy with that draft, right? I mean, you would take Salon at 4 and Klingen at 14, right? It's just flipped.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Like, what are we doing with Clinton though?
We're
We
trading
have
Robert Williams the third, and then
Well, should we trade
a
Aiden
year or
too?
two from now, we're probably trading Aiton.
All right, that's fine.
I don't know. I'm not really
I'd
worried
be
about like
I'd
the
be so
guys.
disappointed if not if Sar fell to 2 and
Well, yeah, if we took Klingon over Sar, I'd be pissed. But I mean, this draft for you, I wouldn't like this draft as much because I'm not as high as Salon. Salon. I heard this said about another player, but I think it does a better job explaining how I feel about Salon than I've been able to explain in the past. He just feels so like theoretical is the word. A little too theoretical for me, like top 8. So I've used the word substance a lot. I'm learning how to talk better about draft prospects, like the real smart guys. You know what I mean? I've always been able to analyze them, but there's certain terms that explain what I mean a lot better. Always getting better over here, man.
Yeah, I just like the players in terms of swinging for upside that I've actually physically seen them do things that are star level. It obviously with Salon, it's not consistent enough for it. Like obviously the lows are pretty low, but the few highs I've seen were like, wow, if he can ever consistently do that kind of stuff, he's a star. And so like I'll take my chances on someone like that than someone who I know will be a solid floor level player, but might not have star upside.
I think there's a few guys that do legitimately have star upside though. Holland is one of them. Topic is one of them. Sar is one of them. Dillingham is one of them. Buzelis is one of them. Castle, maybe the best case scenario, is one of them. But like he could have a star level impact as a role player, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's my top 6 or 7. Like Klingon, maybe a star level impact as a role player in the best case scenario. So that's my top 7 right now. And then I forget who I had it at 8, but that's where it kind of trails off. Yeah. Anyway, let's simulate this little lottery. At 14 is Portland. At 13 is Sacramento. At 12 is OKC. 11 Chicago. 10 Atlanta. 9 is Houston. So far it's chalk. 8 is Utah. 7 is San Antonio, moving down 2 spots, which means Toronto's top 4 and Memphis is top 4. At 6, it should be your Portland Trailblazers. And at 6 is the Charlotte Hornets. Could you imagine draft lottery day where we see
3 teams in a row move up?
Yeah. Oh man. Well, it was what, 6, 7, and 4, 4, 6, 7. But it would be heartbreaking to see like San Antonio there at 7 and it be their own pick, because that means 2 of the top 4 spots are already taken. So it'd be like a no. And then if you see Charlotte next, it'd be a yes. So hopefully something like this. Detroit at 5, of course. At 4 is the Memphis Grizzlies. At 3 is the Toronto Raptors. So you got Washington and Portland left. We haven't gotten number 1 in a long time, Eric. Even with these better odds that we've had since the end of the season. At 2 is the Portland freaking Trailblazers. We just can't get one. And a 1 is the Washington Wizards. Washington, please take Topic. You need a point guard.
So yeah, Tyler James just said second to last tankathon. We only have one more, Tori.
Well,
or maybe on Thursday we'll just do it like 800 times.
Yeah, we'll do it every time somebody donates on Thursday. And every time somebody donates, it's their tankathon spin. But also, we'll probably do one on
before Sunday.
Yeah. So I don't know, if we get 100 donations on Thursday, maybe we have 100 more tankathons to go. But yeah, Tankathon's almost done. I'm excited. I'm kind of excited to be past the. I don't know. Tankathon sims are always fun, but it's always nice to take a break from them, especially with how long we've been doing them this year. We've been doing them non-stop since November. So. But then next year, they'll have like their projected lottery, and then we can actually simulate for Cooper Flag, Ace Bailey, my guy Hugo.
Peter Holland says, did you both talk about your number one draft hypotheticals for us in terms of outcome? I think it's very clear that we both want Alexander Sarr.
Yeah,
right?
Sarr 100% with our own pick.
If that's best case,
yeah,
we get Sarr.
Yeah, for Eric, it's Sarr and then Salon with the 14th pick, assuming we have it. And for me, it's Sarr and Jalen Tyson with the 14th pick. And then, like, who knows who could be there at 34. Just whoever's highest on our boards probably is who we're hoping for.
I mean, I'm cool with Chomsky at 14, too. I'm cool with him at 34 as well.
Well,
if
you'd be cool with him at 5, apparently, or 4, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
if we took him at 4, would you actually be like not upset at all? Really?
Well, that's like the Giants taking Daniel Jones. You know, like I don't think you need to pick the high. I mean, maybe something is going to change between now and the draft or something to where he's shooting up draft boards and like that's the buzz, which then I'd be fine with. But yeah, I don't think you need to take him that high. I think
I'm just picturing taking him at like 5 and how pissed off I'd be, bro. He's just too far out there for me that high.
Yeah. I would be like, okay, this is a bit of a reach, but if you identified him as your guy, you got your guy.
There's just not even enough
but
to identify him as the guy.
I've seen nothing having him top 10. But, like, I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny because the only, like, I'll see people have him top 10 on their big boards, but it's people, Blazer fans I follow on Twitter that watch the show. The Eric influence. The Eric influence. And most of the time those people have Ricochet pretty low too, which is the Tory influence, okay? My influence is hatred, and your influence is love, apparently.
Yeah, maybe.
But, I don't know. Like, at 14, if we took him over, like, somebody else that I've seen projected top 14, I wouldn't hate it. I've seen that apparently Tristan da Silva is now getting lottery love, according to No Ceilings. That's what they said. I've been watching a ton of draft podcasts lately.
Didn't they also say, though, that Colin Murray Boyles was going to change his mind? They had inside information or something.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes inside information can be wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Peter Holland's member for 32 months. Sarr plus Ayton work well together in your eyes? Question mark.
I don't know. I still am not sold on Ayton, so like I'm hesitant to say yes. I think Sarr will work well no matter what. I just think he's going to be a really impactful defender, and I love his offensive upside at 7'1" and his athleticism. So getting a big like that can play the 4 or 5 is what the Blazers need, no matter who their center is. So I really like Sarr. I floated the idea like I wouldn't hate, depending on the cost, to trade up to get Klingon. Like if he was there at 9 or 10, I wouldn't hate a long-term starting front court of Sarr and Klingon, because that front court is locking down the paint, and you can build a really, really good defense around that. Offensively, Sarr would really need to pan out in order for that to be a plus front court offensively, but It's Sar next to any big I'm cool with, I guess.
Yeah, I think much like with Wemby, I don't think it really matters right away. I think Sar is capable enough to guard fours, or be a four defensively, with those responsibilities. So I think it's fine. You can always, move them in and out of the lineup. So one of them's always in the game and it's only overlaps a little bit. But yeah, I think it's fine for like a year or two because we're not obviously competing for a championship next year. So, but I don't know if that's long term the right thing. But I mean, size might be okay. But yeah, I like you. Don't know if it's like we talk about all these guys earlier in the playoffs that are dogs, right? It's like that's my one worry with Ayton is like,
Yeah.
does he have that dog in him that you need to compete with some of these teams right now?
That's why I'm not sold on him. I just don't trust his temperament and the attitude he brings to the game. Like, I don't think he would fit on Minnesota. I think Minnesota would rather have Naz Reid as their backup center than DeAndre Ayton. And that's the problem that I've had with Jeremy Grant plus DeAndre Ayton. You're paying a lot of money to those two guys, and neither of them I view as, like, dogs. I don't view either of them as guys that'll go out there, do the dirty work, and play their ass off. Mm-hmm. Jeremy Grant, the perfect example of that, is how poorly he rebounds. And I want guys at that position that are really good defensively. I don't think Ayton or Grant is that. And I want guys that play hard and compete. And I've had issues with Ayton. It got a lot better the second half of the year, but that's always been a little bit of a knock on him in Phoenix, and then we saw it early in the season last year. And then with Jeremy, it's once he became a scorer, he kind of lost what little bit of that he had.
Yeah.
He doesn't compete the same on defense or on the glass. He was never a good rebounder, but especially now. So that's why I hate the idea of pairing Brandon Ingram up with them,
Yeah.
So anyway, that's Tankathon. Yeah.
Hey, second pick.
Second pick, and we get to pray that Sar falls, man. God, I'd be so excited. I want legitimate size and defensive ability at front court spots. That's why I'm like more open to Klingen if we fall to like 6 or 7.
Well, let me ask you a question that kind of along the lines you just asked me. If we get that scenario play out where 2, Sar goes 1, are you cool with them taking Klingen 2?
No. Too much upside available at that pick to take Klingen. If we
Would you want Buzelis?
Yeah, Buzelis, Holland, Castle, I even think has a little bit more upside and is something that we need in terms of a point of attack defender at a guard spot. So,
speaking of dogs,
yeah, the dog. Like, dude, I mean, Castle's you could talk me into Castle at 2 for the Blazers because I know he's like a guard. He's 6'6", maybe 6'5", so maybe not really a 3, but I think he'll be able to play the 3 just because he plays his ass off. And in the playoffs today, you see Ben Shepherd versus Josh Hart for an extended period of time at the small forward spot, Eric. Like, small forward is trending slightly smaller, especially if it's somebody that competes his ass off. So that's where a guy like Castle comes in, where I think he'll be able to play the 3, even if he measures 6'5". But he could come in and help change the culture. He could be one of those guys that helps change the culture. We need more guys like a Stephon Castle.
Yeah.
So that's where it would be fun to get a guy like him. And that's where I would take him over Klingen. So you can't talk me into Klingen until 5. I have him at 6, but the one guy you could talk me into over him is him versus Dillingham, just because Dillingham's another offensive guard, which we don't really need.
Yeah.
So Sarr, Buzelis,
What do you mean
Castle,
we need that? We're trading Anthony to the Magic.
I mean, maybe we just end off this stream with that conversation, Eric. I really want to start Sharp and Scoot next year. But I do not want to bring Ant off the bench if he's still here. And we've talked about, you start all three. But is that good for building a defensive identity and a culture of, like, we're going to play our asses off, we're going to hustle, we're going to grind? Those are the things I'm conflicted with right now.
Well, I think you make it the emphasis if you do start him. But I don't have confidence in this coaching staff to do that. But I don't know. I still don't think it matters next year.
Like if those three guards were playing under Chris Finch in Minnesota and we're starting point guard, shooting guard, small forward, would he get that out of them? I don't know. I don't know if even the best culture will be enough, because we've seen Sharp give up on the law plays sometimes, and his motor at times hasn't seemed like the highest. He has a lot of freaking talent, though, so, like, I'm okay with it, but...
I mean, those guys have Rudy Gobert.
Yes. Tonight they didn't.
Well, I mean, like, normally.
Yeah. But it's just, like, I don't know. The three of them together, I just feel like has given up so much defensively. It's rough. It's rough. I mean, I'm cool with, like, them three starting together next year. Don't get me wrong. I just wonder if that's the best move for trying to start building towards that identity. Even if you had the right coach, I'm not sure. I'm not making any definitive statements. I'm just a little conflicted in that regard, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know. I liked what I saw. Was kind of small sample size, but with Ant and Sharp together too, I kind of like to see that as well.
Yeah. I think part of it is I think Scoot's going to take a massive jump next year. And it may not be where he's averaging like 22 a game and 10 assists or anything like that. I mean, just a massive jump in terms of being somebody that impacts winning. And like, if the team's not winning, I forget what the stat was, but basically it's like Scoot is always a negative. Even in games they won, it was like he was a negative in a lot of those games and had some of the worst plus minuses in the league. And like the team was just really bad with him on the floor last year. I think he's going to improve enough to make it so that the team is more competitive with him on the floor. And he's just going to be better in general, because I think he's going to work his ass off and he seems to know what he needs to work on. And that's where it's like I want to give him the opportunity to hit the ground running next year. And obviously some of that comes through earning it in training camp, but I don't know. Because you can make the case that if you want to start building towards that defensive identity, it makes a ton of sense to start Kamara at the 3. Right?
Sure. I mean, ideally we don't have Grant.
Yeah. I do like Kamara a little better at the 3 than the 4, but he did rebound well enough where I'm okay with him at the 4.
Well, hopefully we have our 4 of the future out of the draft or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. If you got Sarr, a big part of me will want to go into next year, like, let's start Kamara and let's start Sarr at the 3 and the 4. Because defensively, for a first and second year player, those guys are going to have a huge impact. And we can start building towards that identity. But then you're bringing one of the guards off the bench. And if all 3 are here, I don't really want to do that either. So these are the things that Joe Cronin have to figure out.
Well, I mean, who starts doesn't really... I mean, they could still start them as like a ceremonial type thing, and then but the bulk of the playing time goes to the defensive guys. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's overcomplicating it. I don't know. I've become a little bit more open to trading Anthony, but it would have to be for fair value. And I don't think the Blazers are going to get fair value. And I think a lot of people says, you have to trade Ant no matter what. No way you go into the offseason thinking that. Because basically that implies that you're willing to take less than fair value for him, and the Blazers are not in a position where they have enough assets or have enough talent to be able to take less than fair asset value for Anthony Simons back in a trade.
Especially when some of those same people are like, well, you can't trade Brogdon if you don't get good offers, like.
Exactly. Like, it only makes sense to do that if you also trade Brogdon. And then at that point, probably also trade Grant, because here's the thing. If you trade Grant and Simons and Brogdon and maybe Robert Williams III, you're probably hopefully saving enough money in those trades to be able to open up flexibility to accumulate assets in the rebuild way. But then also, you probably are really, really bad next year in a loaded draft. So yes, you miss Anthony's ability, but you're getting it back because you suck. Because you don't have his ability on the floor. I don't know.
Yeah, I just think in terms of the Blazers' mindset, Cronin said this, so take it with a grain of salt, but he said they're still in talent acquisition mode. To me, that's not trading any of the three guards.
His mindset is screwed.
Yeah.
I don't trust for him to have the right mindset at all, but I can hope.
But if Orlando called and offered 18 and 2 future firsts for Anthony, are you taking it?
You said who? Sorry, I'll think the shout out to Orlando for the donut. I'll read it in a second. You taking what from Orlando?
No players, just getting out of his contract. You get pick 18 and then 2 future firsts.
No, because I expect all of them to be late firsts. Like, that's... I could see people saying yes and it being justifiable to say yes, but I would want a more sure thing of an asset, if that makes sense. Or them to actually do something with all the savings that they're getting. And I don't know. If we didn't have the 14th pick, maybe, but like, I'm not against getting another first, but for Ant, it just isn't really worth it as the number one asset.
If we end up trading Anthony, I hope it's before the draft so we could then if we draft a guard, or we could open up the possibility of drafting a guard.
Yeah. Like,
good.
Well, that's the thing where it's like if you're taking Stephon Castle, it makes a lot more sense if you get like a good trade for Anthony. And then Stephon Castle is like your third guard that can play up and play some three, like is somebody where I'm more confident with him playing next to Sharp and Scoot on the defensive end and having a level of intensity on that end and being a little bit of a culture setter there. Because as you said, we need some dogs. So yeah, I 100% agree with that. What I was going to say is, shout out to default username for jogging my memory. If it's Anthony Black in those 2 future firsts instead of 18 in those 2 future firsts, I'm more inclined to take that. Because Anthony Black is a really good defensive prospect and could be one of those types of guys that we've been talking about all stream. I know you don't like him, but I think that if Ant's gone, he could play that guard spot. But also, I think he can play the 3, so you could take somebody like Castle, and they could be a little bit interchangeable at the 2-3 spots. Yeah. You wouldn't be as pigeonholed into like playing Sharp at the 3. So,
yeah,
it's just tough because I like Ant a lot, so it's like a tough decision to make. But this organization at some point is going to have to make a really tough decision one way or another, Eric.
Yeah.
And after trading Dame, it's like I can stomach anything else that they throw my way, you know?
I know I'm going to get crap for this, but if you have to make a decision this summer, I'm trading Scoot over Ant. I just don't. I I'm keeping the better player. I don't know.
I mean, but what if we said we need upside on this team, and I still think Scoot has more upside.
Yeah, I know. I don't know, man.
And I think Scoot is more likely to become a good defensive guard. He's a ways away, but I think he's more likely to become like that two-way star dog type of guy.
For the record, before you kill me, I just said I want to keep all three of them. I'm not trading any of them if it was up to me. I'm just saying, if I had to trade one of the three, I don't know. I'm trading the worst player so far. Like, I don't know. Like, I know he has the highest ceiling or whatever. I'm just saying that's.
I just feel like, hypothetically, if you had Ant and Scoot in this year's draft, and you didn't have either of them on the roster yet, you would take Scoot before Ant.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's much more of a hype prospect. Like,
yeah. And I don't know. Like, that's where I'd trade Ant before Scoot. Because at the end of the day, we need a top 15 player, and I don't know who that is, you know what I mean? But Scoot has a chance still, I think, albeit more of a long shot chance than I initially thought, and Shaedon Sharpe has a chance. And if we're trading one of them, I'd rather trade the better one now so we can suck next year and maybe get that guy that way. Right? Like, so.
Yeah. Shout out to Jason Hawley for becoming a starter member, and then let's read his other member message or his donation.
Shout out to Jason, $10 donation, says, been gone for a bit, broke my elbow with another fight with Oscar De La Flor.
Yeah, that
you
sucks,
fell,
Jason.
man? That sucks. That sucks. I like your Oscar De La Flor joke. I'm not laughing at your pain. Hopefully that heals up. He says, LOL, lost my internet. Any draft lottery party this year? Yeah, we're planning on doing something. So we will.
The problem is there's conflicting information about what time.
Yes.
So it's hard to book a place not knowing exactly what time it's taking place. And if it's the later time, it's going to be even more difficult because it's basically dinner time on Mother's Day. And that might be a non-starter for a lot of people. But
yeah. Yep, 100%.
But at the very least, we'll definitely stream. We'll be streaming during the lottery. But
yes, for sure. Bleacher Report reached out to me and asked if I wanted to do a lottery watch party on Bleacher Report. It was like, maybe if I can simulcast it. So I asked them, like, if I'm using Streamlabs, can I simulcast it? Because we're doing an event like we did last year. So maybe I'll be live on Bleacher Report 2 alongside the channel with wherever I'm at, but not sure. Not sure. Kevin says, why couldn't the Hornets just pick Scoot, man? I still am completely fine with having Scoot over Brandon Miller, man. Have you watched my film breakdown yet, Eric? I understand if you haven't had the time.
Yeah.
Did it change anything on how you felt about Scoot? I know you watched him all year long, so probably not, but...
Not really. I mean, I still feel like he's got upside. I'm totally willing to give him some leeway to work on what he needs to work on. So
yeah, I'm just weirdly confident in him.
Yeah,
given he's from.
It's fine. You really like Scoot.
Sometimes I feel like I'm one of the last people left on Scoot Island in terms of like thinking he can be a star.
You're not.
Chat.
And your video swayed a lot of people.
That's good. That's good. Because I saw some comments like, look at his turnovers. How can his rookie season be a success? Because I titled the video, was Scoot's rookie season a success? And it's like, you people, man, you can turn failure into success. Failure can be successful if you learn from it, if you use it to improve, if you use it to do better in the future. Not every negative has to be forever. You can turn a negative into a positive. Right? And that's the thing with Scoot, is like his struggles showed him what he needs to work on. And if he has a better understanding of what he needs to do at the NBA level now because of how he struggled his rookie year, then it's a successful rookie season, despite him not playing too well. Because ultimately, it wasn't about what he was going to be year one as a rookie point guard, 19, 20 years old during his rookie season. It's always been about what he could turn into. And that was never going to be just predicated upon his rookie season. Of course, we always want results right away, especially with somebody as much hype coming in as Scoot did, but I think he has the right mindset. I think he's going to learn from his mistakes, and I think he has a great work ethic, and that goes a long way. And that's why I'm super excited for next year to see him come back as a different player.
Absolutely.
I mean, just remember the way Anthony Simons looked as a rookie. I know he had that big 37-point game at the end of the year, but he did not look like an NBA player all year long. He had an impressive flash here and there, Eric, right? But I don't know, if he was playing Scoot's minutes, he probably would have been worse than Scoot, I think.
Yeah, but he also didn't play in the G League for 2 years before. The G League is irrelevant now, especially considering we've talked about it as maybe it doesn't prepare players the best way possible for the NBA. Yeah, but he still played professionally for 2 years versus playing at IMG Academy.
What? Him being better as a 17, 18-year-old, I don't think means that he was worse as a 19-year-old? I don't know.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, Scoot had been technically a pro for 3 years. It's not Simons basically sat out a year before he played and didn't play at all his rookie year.
Yeah, but we don't use that against international guys. I don't know. I just think he is what he is. He is what he was this year.
I'm just saying I can't compare their rookie seasons. They were nothing alike. Ant didn't play at all. He's on a good team.
Yes, but
he was on a Western Conference Finals team.
The point is, he looks night and day different than what he does as a rookie. Dame at 22, 23 looked night and day different than what he did as a freshman at Weber State.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think it's good to talk about that perspective with guys that have already arrived that weren't necessarily lighting the world on fire as rookies. And I know there's failures that didn't pan out, that looked bad as rookies and didn't get better. But there's a lot of guys that didn't look great as rookies that ended up becoming really, really good players, and that's just where the jury is still out. And I this isn't towards you, Eric, at all. This is towards people that have already started to come to conclusions about what Scoot's NBA career will be.
Yeah, I think it's still very much up in the air.
When he wins MVP, I'm doing victory laps. Speak it into existence. But
congratulations, you thought the number one pick in most drafts would be good.
Hey, man. When that hype is used by a lot of people on Twitter against him now, then I don't know. Because people legitimately use the hype that he had against him to say he's a bust already, so people have already unsubscribed from the hype, I think. At this point, I don't even care about the hype. Anyway, anything else?
I mean, guys, you can name players that developed after their rookie years all you want. I can name just as many people who just ended up never having a career, being busts. It doesn't mean Scoot will be that person or the other person. It's all up to him how good he's going to be. I think he has got all the skill set and the talent to be a great player, and hopefully he achieves that.
Yep. Looking forward to next year. We'll see if he plays the Summer League. But he's going to have a big offseason. And if they're only playing him 20 minutes a game to start next year or something crazy, I'm going to have a major problem with that. I want him to start next year. That's where I'm at with Scoot. And especially some of the strides that he made this year as well, with his shot especially.
What if he isn't improved at all?
I don't think that's possible. I think he works too hard.
Okay.
I think he works too hard. He's like, I expect him to be in the gym all summer. So he's going to come back a better player, right?
I mean, in theory, yeah.
In theory. I mean, here's the thing. Some guys can work hard and not work on the right things. I think he's a smart enough guy to know what he needs to work on. And that's something I've heard too. Like, he knows what he needs to work on. So going from his rookie year to his sophomore year, I don't see how he's not a better player next year. I would be beyond shocked if he wasn't noticeably better next season. And maybe it's not right away at the start of the season. Maybe it takes a few games to knock off the rust, to show those improvements, but I think we'll be looking back and be much happier with him next year than we were this year. He likes Cheetos a lot. Yeah, maybe he won't improve because that's not good food for an athlete to eat. Maybe the Cheetos will hold him back, Eric. I don't know. Or maybe we need to motivate him to get that Cheetos sponsorship and he needs to be better and maybe Cheetos are a good thing. I'm not sure. Anyway. Not if we trade Brogdon, his mentor. Hopefully, well, you know what, Eric? If his elbow or whatever it is really that screwed up, I mean, we opened up an assistant spot for him, so he could be Scoot's vet mentor as a coach, although I don't know if that counts for people anymore because he's not a player. We could, like, let him play in practice, so he was like a player, mentor, coach. Anyway. We'll be live again on Thursday. Dropping a video tomorrow. Might be on the luxury tax thing. Eric.
That was not me that asked that question, by the way.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Eric that asked that question.
It's different, Eric.
If you know what we're talking about, we got blatantly called idiots, but it was like, don't listen to the idiots that peddle that it's a bad thing that we're $9 million over the luxury tax in a rebuild. Because we can wait till the deadline was essentially the clip from the Joe Crony podcast. Eric, that's what I'm going to call it. Since we're messing up names of Blazer legends. Anyway. I love it. Anything else? From you?
Yeah. Carbon says, hey, when's the draft lottery? It's this month? Yeah, it's Sunday, dude. We've been talking about it all street.
Yeah.
I know you've been in here. He's too busy arguing with people in chat.
Yeah, to hear the 3 times we mentioned it. Yeah, Sunday. We don't know the time yet. We will let you guys know. It's on Mother's Day for some reason. So. Wonder how that's going to affect the lottery stream. Although the lottery stream I don't think is going to be popping like last year because there's no Wemby.
Yeah.
Excited to find out, though.
Mm-hmm.
Excited to find out. Anyway. If you haven't watched that Scoot video, go check it out. I will drop a video between now and the next stream. I want to start doing daily. These reviews took me much longer than I thought they would take, man. So I would probably drop them a few more throughout the rest of May. I might, like, upload 2 videos in a day, one a review, one a normal video. I'm basically just have like pieces of a bunch of review videos right now put together, so stay tuned for those. Hopefully you enjoyed the Scoot one. Thank you to we missed a donation at the start of the stream, unless you read it off from Pedro.
My thing. Oh, wow. That's weird. Like a few minutes ago, I checked, and there were only the Peter Hollins, Jason Hawley ones, and
Yeah.
then some just showed up.
I don't know. YouTube glitch. Shout out to Joe Pedro. Sorry if I messed up your name.
Zhao.
I like that. 5. What is the R? It's been a minute since we've had a currency check, Eric.
Let me do it.
We need our people in Australia, in like Romania, to show back up again. It's Brazil. Oh, we got him in here. Good. I was hoping you were still here, considering you donated. I'm sorry it took us 40 or 30 minutes to read off your donation. From Brazil. Awesome. Thank you for the 5. Says, I know it's a conspiracy theory, but what are your opinion on the chance the NBA is rigging the Golden State pick since they are starting to fade away? Thank you for the donation. The draft lottery is conducted by an independent firm so that it isn't rigged. So I don't think it's rigged at all because it's not the NBA actually running the draft lottery. And it's a firm that does lotteries and like it's predicated upon transparency and it not being rigged. So they actually film the whole process and release it. They have team representatives in the room, so I don't think the lottery is rigged at all.
Yeah. Well, if they did rig it, why did they give New Orleans Zion and instead of New York? And
yeah,
not everything is rigged, but actually, if they want to rig it for Golden State to move up in the lottery into the top 4, I'm fine with that.
Well, I'm not fine with the rigging part, but I'm fine with them moving up part.
Yeah,
because they would never rig us to get the number 1 pick except for when it's Greg Oden because his knees are screwed, and Kevin Durant is the number 2 pick. But yeah, fully expect Portland to have that Golden State pick, and if they don't, that's going to be a wild lottery stream on Sunday, May 12th, Eric. Every time I talk about the lottery, I'm going to say May 12th. Anyway, we're out of here. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. It's been fun watching the NBA playoffs. I've enjoyed talking about them, enjoyed covering them. If you missed the start of the stream, we talked about the Timberwolves. We talked a lot about team building, roster construction type of stuff, and maybe some of how our mindsets might be changing a little bit based on what is happening in this year's NBA playoffs, as the Timberwolves have gotten off to a 2-0 series lead against the Nuggets by winning both games in Denver, including a 26-point win tonight without Rudy Gobert. Did not see that coming. So
close.
Just absolute demolition. It's going to be interesting to watch Game 3 in Minnesota because they won that game. They're up 3-0. No team has ever come back from that. If you think any team could come back from that, it would maybe be the defending champs. But, man, Timberwolves, Western Conference Finals versus the Thunder or Mavericks, Eric? Is this just lining up for the Celtics to win it all? I don't know. But I love parity in the NBA. It's been fun.
It's an absolute failure if they don't.
Yeah, they're kind of like the Niners, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Anyway, with that being said, I'm out of here. We're out of here. We'll catch you guys again on Thursday. And until next time, actually, before I get out of here, Blazers Uprise merch, link in description. We drop merch. And now we're out of here. Until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.